Before we start this episode, there's something you need to know. We were never going to release what we've just recorded. The reason for that is because it didn't turn out how we expected it to turn out. If you're watching the podcast on YouTube, you'll see that I've got a piece of paper in front of me. And if you're listening, you'll know that I had a piece of paper in front of me. And on that paper, it said things like, be gentle, give me tips on how to get through, i.e. meditation, long walks, give it time. And that's not what happened. But what did happen is a transformation. If you're kind enough to watch or listen to the episode, you will see that my mood throughout this episode goes from down here to up here. We start off where I'm really sad and really pensive, and we get to the middle where we have a bit of an argy-bargy between me and Brian and some disagreement, and then we get to the end and my mood has just lifted and I'm doing what I love to do most in the world, which is laughing at life. And that is why we're going to release the episode. The reason that happened is because Brian gave me some, I want to say stern, but it wasn't stern. It was just insightful advice. And on reflection, sometimes it's the advice that you don't want to hear, that what you need to hear the most. And that's why we're releasing this episode, because if you are in a place where you're feeling utterly wretched or down or just grieving or sad, whatever it is you're feeling, just like me, I want to show you that there's hope. And that's all we want for you. That's all we wish for you, that there is hope and it can get better. So without further ado, sit back and enjoy the episode that we weren't going to release, but we think you're going to find of great value. Thanks for listening.
Hello.
How come no one tells you that? How come no one says to you, right, listen, just be prepared. When your mum dies or your dad dies or someone close to you passes away, you're going to keep thinking about death. You're going to keep thinking, what about when it happens to me? And just no one tells you about that. And because I don't know about it, because I'm ignorant to it, because my mum didn't tell me about it, I'm thinking, this isn't normal.
Hello.
I'm depressed.
Daddy, I love him.
Mother thanks you.
Right, Mr. DeMille, I'm ready for my close-up.
Hello and welcome to the It's a Drama podcast. I'm Liz.
And I'm Brian.
And this week we're back with one of those episodes that, you know, when you listen to a podcast and the first thing the host says is, I don't know if I'm going to release this podcast episode, but if I do, then, you know, and immediately you're thinking, oh, Brill.
I know.
What they're going to be talking about.
This shouldn't have been released.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where you think, I'm in on a private conversation. And I feel like this podcast episode is going to be like that.
Yep. And we haven't been on for quite a time really doing podcast, Liz. And that's what this really is, what you want to talk about, isn't it?
Can I just say as well that this podcast episode is inspired? I don't normally say this, but I've got to, because I owe her this. It's because of her that I'm sitting behind this microphone today.
Yeah.
My friend Nicole Khalil, who's got a wonderful podcast called This Woman's Work. I've been on her show. She's just the most delightful, gorgeous woman that you can ever meet. And this morning I was on my walk and I pressed podcast play on my podcast app thing, and her podcast came up. And the first thing she says is, I don't know if I'm going to release this episode, but if I do, then, you know, thank you for joining me. And she talks all about, I mean, her journey this morning was all about whether or not she should take some sort of diet pill or something.
Ozempic, I think is the word you're looking for.
I don't want to get into the details, but
No.
my point is, she was brave enough to make that episode. It was such a vulnerable episode. And because of her, I came home and thought, you know what, I'm going to talk today about, I hope that Brian will talk with me about it, about whether or not what I'm feeling at the moment is grief or depression. And it's a massive, massive personal, vulnerable, grey matting subject that I was too scared to talk about. I've talked to you about it. Well, actually, not really, have we?
Do you know what?
We have not really talked about it.
We've talked about so much, but today actually is the first day that you actually mentioned the fears of, is it depression? Or is it just grief that is masking, or not masking, but it's grief that you would think is masking as depression. Is that the right way around of saying it? I suppose it is to a degree.
For those of you who are new and haven't joined us before, and maybe you've just turned up and thought, okay, what's going on here? What's this podcast all about? Normally we talk about our life in our midlife. We talk about travel. We talk about making money online. We talk about living in New Zealand. We talk about being a married couple who are just out there trying our hardest to live our best life with everything else that comes at us. And 6 months ago, my mum was diagnosed with cancer and she passed away a month ago. And so this is what we're talking about. This is the crux of it, is dealing with the grief. Because I'm going to be really, really honest with you here, Bri. The last podcast we made was almost like a what's that word? A eulogy?
A eulogy.
Eulogy?
Yeah, like a tribute, and a eulogy.
Okay.
Yeah.
To my mum. I wrote it and I read it on the podcast, and that was to my mum. And in my mind, I thought, right, it's done.
Yep.
Move on, Liz.
Yep.
I really did think that. I'm being honest with you. I thought the next time I get behind that microphone, I'm just going to be back to my normal self. I knew I wasn't going to be, like full of beans and happy and everything's forgotten. But I truly, honestly believed it's been 5 weeks almost now. And come on, Liz, time to move on. And I just don't feel like that.
No, there's a difference between drawing a line in the sand and crossing over it and moving on. But this is something that you can't straight off the bat move on from, because it's with you and it's going to be with you for the rest of your life. It's just so many people have said different versions of how and you cope with grief and stuff. And time is the huge healer in this. And there's no one says it's going to take 6 years in one day, or it's going to take six weeks in one day. It's not, is it? It's everything is individual, without going into too deep or anything like that. But there's no rule in this.
No, there isn't any rule.
Yeah.
And before we just get deeper into this, because obviously that's what this podcast episode is about, I just want to make two small disclaimers. One, we're going to be talking about depression and our experience, well, certainly my experience of depression. And I just want to say, because I know nothing, I don't know enough about this subject to talk about it. For what I suppose I'm trying to say is, someone who is sitting there with clinical depression, please forgive me if I make mistakes, if I say the wrong thing, if I don't sound like I know what I'm talking about. This is just our experience of it. I'm not, we're not here to give advice on people who have got depression. And
no, depression's thrown around an awful lot these days. And everyone puts around and go, that's me,
Yeah.
Not just having a bad day.
No. And the second little thing that I'd like to say is just the reason we're making this podcast. And I know that we talked about this earlier, didn't we? When we were making a cup of tea, Brian said, why do you want to talk about it? And it's almost as if, like, when you talk about something, especially when I talk to you about it on the podcast, and I know that people are listening to this, but it's almost like this is just a private conversation between me and you.
No one might never listen to it.
No, they might not. No,
it might never go.
Oh, grief or depression? No, thanks.
Yeah.
But it takes the shroud off it. And I always think that if I'm feeling like this, there must be someone else out there that is feeling exactly the same. And I'm making this episode for you. So there you go. That's what I wanted to say. For me, selfishly for me, and for you, to just help you in some tiny little way.
Yeah.
So going back to the time thing, this is why I'm questioning, is this grief or depression? First of all, let's just talk about, I just want to say my thoughts about depression. Depression to me is really, really scary.
Yep.
My granddad was diagnosed with depression, and I saw him go from being a man full of life, playing his music, the life and soul of the party, take me swimming to the swimming pool. He lost his son in a car accident when his son was 17, my mum's brother. And from that day forward, he never got out of his chair. And I think he died of depression. I mean, he was diagnosed
he was never the same.
He was never the same.
I only met him after the event, not before. Yep.
And so growing up, it was just, oh no, that's scary. And I'd say, what's wrong with Granddad? Oh, he's depressed. you know, and it was terrifying to me. It was just meant the end of the life. If you were depressed, then it was just, that was it. All the fun goes. And so it's obviously it's a scary thing to think, oh no, what if I get depression?
Yeah.
And then in my 40s, when I was in my early 40s, I went to the doctors, what I believed to be perimenopause, and I was just crying and I just couldn't concentrate and I was feeling really down. He diagnosed me with depression, gave me antidepressants. I took them for about 3 months. They were absolutely fantastic, the tablets. And I told you at the time, what it made me feel like was I could still feel the sadness, but I couldn't get there. So I wouldn't cry and I wouldn't go down. It was almost like seeing sadness in the distance, but I was too far away from it to be connected. And that's how antidepressants made me feel.
Like a pillow on your head type thing.
Yeah, it just made me feel like I could cope because I wasn't going to go down, 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 down. And I took it for 3 months and I absolutely loved it. But then I started thinking, oh, I don't like not being in what's the word?
In touch
In
with
touch,
everything?
yeah. I don't like not being able to feel things because it made me, I mean, this is my personal experience.
Dulled things is
It
what you're
did.
saying. Yeah.
It made it feel dulled, yeah. That's exactly what it meant. It felt like. And it was bliss because, like I say, I stopped crying.
Yeah.
You know, I could get through homeschooling without crying my eyes out all the time.
Yeah.
And then I came off them and it was fine and we went travelling and everything was great. And then I came back and I went back to the doctors again, said, I can't stop crying. I just feel really down. He said, oh, you're depressed. And I listened to all these podcasts about menopause, perimenopause and menopause and taking HRT. And I went back to the doctors and changed my doctor. And I said to her, can I take HRT?
Yeah.
I took HRT. That was 4 years ago. Ever since then, I'm still a crybaby. I still cry at everything. But, just not that same thing.
Can I just wind you back a bit and just ask you a question? Because, a lot of people go to the doctor who's just a general practitioner. And
Not just a general practitioner.
Yes, but it's they don't specialise in one sort of subject. Is what I'm trying to say. So how did he say you were depressed? How did he come around to it?
I did a quiz.
A quiz.
Yeah, I did a quiz.
And how long was the quiz for?
Took me about 5 minutes, 10 minutes to fill it in.
Wow.
Well, no, I had an appointment. I know what you're going to say.
I'm just saying. I know. It's an awful lot though, isn't it? And then 5-minute question, and then I'll take this.
I know.
Wow. Yes, it worked, but it wasn't the reason, I don't think, was it? Which is what you're about to get onto now. I just think that's a hell of a way to go, hey, guess what, mate? You're depressed.
Have you ever been diagnosed with depression?
No, I haven't, no. I've had a few things through stress. When I built this house that we're in right now, at the end of it, I was absolutely exhausted. And I remember sitting on the couch. We just had a big argument. We were supposed to go into a party and I said stuff that I'm not going. I just can't face meeting anyone. I really can't. Just haven't got the energy. Really, really haven't. And I just sat there and I remember looking out the window, thinking, "Well, okay, I'm depressed. This is what it is. This is it. It's a spiral from here on." And you're driven off, I think, with the kids, and then you came back and said, "No, get in the car. You're going." And
did I?
Yeah, you did. Yeah. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And yes, you are. You were very strong. And you're just like, and I went out and we had quite a good night. And see, that's what I'm saying is like, if you think about it, then you start to go down, down, down. You can go down very quickly. And the other time when we'd just come back from just 2 years ago, I think we did a podcast called Struggling. Again, it was just a little bit of burnout from coming home and just doing all these things, bum, 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 and all these things lumped onto you. You're a dad again, you're this again, you're a homeowner, you've got to sort all this out. We live on a lifestyle block, there's all this work needed doing, and whoa, it just hits you, doesn't it? But you recognise the signs sometimes and just think, I'm not, I'm this, I'm tired, I'm looking at it in the wrong way. And it's a change of mindset. I'm not talking about clinical depression here. I'm just talking about my own personal experience.
Yeah.
And that's what you're talking about. So, yeah, that's the only times really in my life, I lost my mum in 2014. And, it was kind of, that side of it was a lot different than what you've just gone through. What you've just gone through, I know without going into it in depth, is just watching someone disappear in front of you. That's that side of it I've never experienced anything like that. Yeah. So anyway, I think we just need to then just so carry on back to, I just wanted to figure out how someone can diagnose you in 5 minutes.
I'll tell you what's worse than being diagnosed in 5 minutes: self-diagnosis. Going on Google.
But again, self-diagnosis, sitting there thinking, this is it. This is it, everybody. This is what I've been waiting for.
Yeah, and I suppose this is what I'm scared of, and this is what. I just feel like I wish someone would just say, these are the stages that you will go through once you lose someone who you love enormously. You know, like, and I think I've said this to you before. Week 5, you will feel like this. Week 6, it'll be like this. And of course, no one is going to say that to you.
No, because nobody knows where you are, do they? Everyone's an individual, aren't they?
But here's the thing, and this is what we were talking about earlier. And I don't know if this is a generation thing. I don't know whether it's because my mum wasn't as close to her mum. I don't know. I've no idea. And she's not here now and I can't ask her. But all I've ever known of grief, I've lost both my grandparents. I've lost all 4 of my grandparents. Yeah. And now I've lost my mum. And all that I knew before my mum passed was someone dies and it's really sad, but then you just move on. And that's what my mum instilled in me. When her mum died, my grandma, she'd just come to New Zealand. We were sad. She gave me my grandma's ring and she said, you know, she would have wanted you to have this. I think we talked about it for an hour maybe, and that was it. Mm-hmm. She just moved on. And I just think now I'm going through my grief with her. I would love to say to her, well, how did you do that? How the hell did you get up in the morning and come and see me and Sonny and Tess and Brian and live in New Zealand? And how did you do it, Mum? Because I wish I knew. I wish I knew how to get through every day without crying your eyes out and, you know, just everything you think about just upsets you, and just looking at photos and it upsets you, and looking at your screenshot on your phone of my mum and that upsets me. And it's just, how do you get through that? How did she get through that?
But does that come down to, again, like we were saying, individually, everyone is individual, but the way I look at things, and I've talked to you about this before, but it's not that it sounds hard, but it's just perception, perspective, those 2 things. If you can get hold of those 2 things, then you understand what is actually going on.
I do understand what's going on, Brian.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Some people look at the perception of what is happening and they stay in there. They don't look at the perspective of like, this isn't actually happening right now, is it? Yes, it is, as in the feelings are, but I can move on. The perspective is different. And your mum, I think, looked at the perspective a lot more than the perception. Perception is a different part of your brain. The perception of like, oh, this is bad. I'm looking at this. I'm feeling bad. Look at that. Not like, I'm looking at this photograph. Oh, what a great photo. That's now the perspective. What a great photograph that was. We did this and that was brilliant, wasn't it? But you look back to the other side of it like, oh, God, we're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
And I worry if that is depression, because I understand, and I have had so many people, and I just want to say, if you are listening to this and you are one of those people that has reached out to me, either through a YouTube comment, through an email, through a message, whatever it is, I love you. I appreciate you so, so much. And a lot of people that have given their love to me have also said, it gets easier with time, Liz. It doesn't get, what did someone say? They said it doesn't get better, it just gets more bearable. That was something that someone said. Mm-hmm. And I almost don't want it to be like that, Bri. I just want to feel back to normal and just feel, like you said, I want to be able to look at a photograph and go, oh, look at that. I'm so grateful I had my mum for all those years. I miss her, but I love her and I will always love her and she'll always be with me. And look what she's instilled in me. And now I can move forward. Yeah. But honestly, I don't feel like that. Yeah. I look at a photo and just feel this deep, deep, deep sadness and longing for her to be back in my life. Yeah. I look at times forward and think, you're not going to be here. You're not going to be here when Tess comes back for her birthday next week. Yeah. You're not going to be here when, you know, when one of them gets married or whatever, you know, you're not going to be here for my sister's wedding. And I worry because I don't want to be like that.
No,
I really
know you
don't.
don't.
And I worry that it's going to stay with me like that forever. Like, this is it. This is the new me. I'm scared about that, Bri. I really am. And I wish I knew. And I know people are going to say, oh, it's just time, Liz. It's give it time. But how long? Because I see other people and they can just cope. They can just get back to how they were. And I'm worried that I'm not doing that. And
so going back to your mum about talking about that perspective, you know, she had a pretty tough time around her 20s with 3 children and, you know, her husband away overseas. And she was...
he went overseas for 2 years while he...
But anyway. What I'm trying to say, if she looked at the perception of what was going on, she would have just sat there and gone, that's it, stuffed. But she didn't. She thought, right, there's nothing else I can do here other than move forward and go get the jobs, go do this, do that, go do that. So that's what I'm trying to say. It's a mindset that, you know, you have to just stop and look at it in a different light. And that's what she did most of her life. That's how she moved forward, because she knew how it felt to think about the perception of what was actually going on. But the reality of it, I've got to do this and I've got to move forward and keep moving forward. It's not being not empathetic about what is going on. It's about the reality of you want to move forward with it and look at things in a different light. Just look, it's a different part of your brain, don't forget. And you can feel quite comfortable in that part of the brain and you're frightened to move on to the next bit and just think, actually, look at it. Come on. You must say to yourself, come on, Liz, look at what's going on. Look at my family at the moment. I've got my daughter, I've got my son, I've got my husband.
I know that.
You know, cats, dogs, going out for walks. You're living the life.
Yeah. I think that's what you don't, I don't mean this in a personal way. I think that's what people don't understand. When you say, I just miss her. I feel so sad. I feel this ache inside my chest. I just feel like crying. I don't want to see anyone. Like yesterday, going to the hairdressers, I was shaking walking in that hairdressers because I just thought, what if he talks to me? What if he says, oh, I'm sorry to hear about your mum? If he says that to me, I thought, if he says that to me, I'm going to just burst out crying. Yeah. As it was, the lovely guy, Richard, thank you, Richard, down at Collab, K&, Collab hairdressers, he was so tactful and so kind and so sensitive, and I didn't cry with him. As it was, another girl came in and did ask me, and I did burst out crying to her. But what I'm saying is, I've lost my train of thought. I think what I'm saying is, of course people say to you, and of course I tell myself every day when I'm journaling, Liz, look at what you've got. Look at all the times you've had with her. Look at, you've got Brian. Imagine if you didn't have Brian. Oh, and that's the other thing as well. I just want to talk about this horrible dread of everyone dying.
Yes.
And you dying.
Yep.
That's another thing no one tells you about grief.
No.
I mean, I don't know if you experienced that when your mum passed, but this feeling, and again, is that grief or is it depression? Because they say, but Bri, they say that when you're depressed, you start thinking about your own death and your own death of people around you.
Yeah,
well,
do.
I'm hand on heart, darling. I am just not constantly, but I lay there at 3:00 in the morning. I wake up, my heart's pounding. I think, what am I going to do when Brian dies? Mm-hmm. What's Tess going to do when I die? You know, how is she going to cope when me and Brian die? Yeah, all these thoughts just go through my head.
Yeah.
And like I just said to you before when we were talking, how come no one tells you that? How come no one says to you, right, listen, just be prepared. When your mum dies or your dad dies or someone close to you passes away, you're going to keep thinking about death. You're going to keep thinking, what about when it happens to me? And, you know, how can I prevent it from happening to me? Just no one tells you about that. And because I don't know about it, because I'm ignorant to it, because my mum didn't tell me about it, I'm thinking, this isn't normal. I'm depressed. This is not right. It's
not depression. It's again, going back to, I know I keep saying it, but it's the perception of what you think is happening or going to happen. And it's not happened. But the perspective, I'm laying next to you. No one else has dropped dead at the moment. It's actually realizing what is going on and listening to your thoughts. And I know you can turn around and say, yes, it's depression. It's not. It's a natural thought process of, especially when someone just dies, because straight away you're looking at obituaries in the thing. I remember when we had to write an obituary for Mum and then all of a sudden you're looking, and it's surrounded by that whole thing. When I was talking to Mark at the cafe the other day, he just said, if I can give you one bit of advice, just start hanging around people that are full of life and youthful people, anyone that's full of life and not all about that. And that is so, so true. But, this season in your life, what's going on right now is all about death and cancer and all that sort of stuff. And it's hard to shift your mind to a new way of thinking again, or just the original way of thinking. It's never going to be the same because, like you say, your mum is not there. Mm-hmm. But it's not depression. It's just...
How do you know it's not?
Because you can quite clearly see that it's not.
How?
Just for the fact that of some of the things that, we went for a walk the other day, and all you talked about on that walk was about either business or podcasting or wanting to get back into doing some creative stuff again. Because you're a huge creative, Liz, and this has just snuffled 90% of it out in one hit, bump, like that. Because we normally do 1 or 2 podcasts a week, don't we? Mm. Whether it's for YouTube or whether it's an audio podcast like this one. I know this one probably will end up on YouTube, but I look at our body language on this particular podcast. Both got our hands like this, both interlocked, or I know occasionally your hands are going up and moving around, but it's been...
Why do you think that is?
Because it's a hard subject to talk about, that it could be depression. And that's what the fear that you've had for many, many years. Your dad was a huge... I can't remember. It's not bipolar, but there was a word for it that was described. That he had, and the fear that you had. Oh, I'm just like my dad. I'm just like my dad, or my granddad. It's in the family, and it's like, yeah, I look at my family. There's not a lot of people that were depressed that I know of, but I know my sister probably struggles with it. Thinking that, this is it. It's post-traumatic stress and stuff like that. That's more what this is than depression. Mm. It's like I say, when I see what you've been through in the last 6 months, especially in the last 2 months, it's not been easy for anybody whoever has gone through someone with cancer.
Just going back to what you just said a minute ago about releasing. Now I'm really aware of my body language. I'm not literally just sitting here hugging myself.
I know, but that's what it's so like. Weird. Me, I'm like this. I was like, whoa, okay, I don't want to say the wrong thing here.
Yeah.
There's more stuff I would like to say, but it's
say
just
it
like, whoa. No,
just say what you want.
No, the big thing.
No one's listening.
No, I know. And that's the thing. It's huge. It was a light bulb moment for me. I was watching a podcast about perception and perspective. And I know I keep going on about it, but people who understand that, people who understand it and actually think, oh my God, I've never looked at it in that way before. It's fight or flight. That's what your perception is,
I kind of want to argue with you on this.
You will
and
far away.
No, I don't want to argue.
But it's not an argue, is it?
No, it's not an argue. But I disagree with you. And I know you keep saying I can get an idea of what you're saying. It depends how you look at it, is what you're saying, isn't it? Your perception of it is actually it's the same situation, but you look at it in one way and I look at it in the other. Is that what you're saying?
You hold on to the perception. As in, this is what you think it is, and you will keep thinking this. You don't look at the perspective, which is a different side of it. It's the same thing, as in the same subject, but the reality of it is this. It's like I've said to you before: walk into the laundry, into the garage, and you see a sweatshirt on the workout bench, and straight away you think it's Pandora the cat that we lost 2 years ago. That's your perception. You see it at the corner of your eye. Oh, there's Pandora. But then you think, no, the perspective side of your brain goes, no, it's not. It's a sweatshirt.
But what's that got to do with me feeling sad about my mum?
That's because you can. What made you think that? What side of your brain made you think that? And that's what I'm saying is you can hold, and then you start thinking about Pandora. Oh, I miss Pandora, I miss this, and you go down instead of just going, oh no, look, and carry on with what you're doing. You're putting it out of your mind. Is what I'm trying to say. Do you think I'm not empathetic?
I think you're hugely empathetic.
So what I'm trying to say is that's most people that think, well, I like looking at the perception of everything because I'm really empathetic to other people and everything else. I'm still very empathetic. I know I am. I feel their pain. I feel their joy. I understand. Empathy is a huge part of being a human being. That's why we are different than other animals and stuff, because that's what is the difference. That's about being. That's why we are a human being, because we are here. And I'm not empathetic about what you're feeling, and I'm not saying it's wrong to feel like it is, because grief is huge. And it's grief, post-traumatic stress. These are the two major things that you're getting through. The post-traumatic stress could make you feel very depressed because you could go down that route because of the trauma that you've been through and you were going through in the latter weeks of your mum, and then just after. It's just starting to rain here. I was just thinking, what's that noise?
It's pouring down, isn't it?
It's been one of those days, isn't it?
Oh, well, I just feel this podcast is going off in a completely different tangent because I just think that...
No, because you wanted to talk about depression. That's what you thought it could be. And I'm just trying to give you a different perspective of what it actually is you're going through.
I don't think I actually went back and finished what I was saying about the content creation, about what you said earlier about, you're not been creating any more content. And that is simply because I don't feel happy enough to create content. Yeah. I don't feel, but then part of my brain, this is, and I'm being totally honest, part of my brain goes, no way, I'm not sitting there. I can't do that. I don't want to sit there and do that. And the other part, I don't want to do that. How disrespectful to go in front of a camera and have fun. Hang on, but then, so that's part of my thinking, and I'm being really honest, and it's hard for me to say that because that's a bit embarrassing to admit, actually, that I do feel like that, no, you should stay being sad. It's only been 5 weeks. Don't you dare get in front of that camera and start laughing and joking and making jokes about New Zealand and being all funny and just trying to be all lighthearted. No, that's not right, Liz. Yeah. The other part of me, we just sat in there before an hour ago and we were going through our videos to see whether or not we should actually video record this podcast, because we don't really like video recording it, but we've noticed that when we do video record it, more people get to see it. So we've thought, right, okay, put that to a side. We'll put a camera there. We'll put it on YouTube and more people will get to see it. But while we were going through the videos to see which ones we'd used the camera and which ones we hadn't, what really struck me was me and you chatting. I landed on one, we were talking about being a cocktail waitress. And I'm just...
Gives a job.
Yeah, it gives a job. And I'm laughing my head off and you're laughing your head off. And all of a sudden, when I was looking at the camera and watching these two people, this stranger in front of me, who was actually me 7 months ago, I thought, oh my God, who's that? She makes me feel good. Yeah. I was watching myself and I thought, oh, I could just feel this lightness inside me. And I thought, I want to be her. I want that. That's what I want back. I want that back. And so how are you ever going to get there if you don't do that? Put yourself and try and put yourself out there and do it. And also by it releases judgment of other people. Like, I think that people are going to judge me and go, oh, well, look at you. Your mum only died 5 weeks ago and now here you are doing that. But actually, no, that's not what people think, because I just watched myself and I thought, I wish she was here now to cheer me up. Yeah. I wish she was the one behind that microphone doing what, I wish that was me. Yeah. And it made me see it in a whole different light. I don't know if that makes sense what I've just said, but...
It does, because I'm listening to you about, you're feeling guilty about having a laugh. And you look at, so say, the king or the queen was to die or Princess Di or whatever it is, and you have a national day of mourning. Some places have, in sort of Middle East countries, they have a week of mourning or 3 days of mourning over someone, a national figure that's died. So, so you've had the National Day of Mourning. Next night, you go to the comedy club in London and everyone's laughing and joking. Because that's what life is, isn't it? And that's what you do, and you have had weeks and weeks of not, like you say, entertaining, which I know to you is a huge thing. It's what you love. You love to write and you love to entertain. There should be never any guilt in it. Who's told you that? That you should feel guilty. You've done enough mourning. 5-6 weeks of what you've been through is huge, and it's not about moving on. You only do that when you am. But I saw you watching that video, and I could see, and I could feel the energy coming out from you, from something that we've done. I've edited it up and everything and stuff like that, so I've seen it umpteen times. But it's still, we both laughed at the same point, and I laughed at you laughing.
We're quite funny, aren't we, Bri?
Yeah,
we
do
can
you know
be
what?
quite funny when we want to be.
But that's the thing. It's so good to laugh. It's to release that pressure, that energy, and you just feel it when you laugh, and it's just like, wow, this is what it's about. This is life.
Is it about finding a way then? Is it about finding a way to be able to still have that loss, just that love, that ache that's in my heart, and still go forward? Because I know that's what my mum would want. And that's what everyone says to you. It's just, if I died and I was looking down, watching Tessa, and I saw Tessa just sitting there, just crying every day, I would be thinking, please, Tess, come on.
Yeah.
Come on, darling, get it together. I'm still here, move forward. I know you miss me, but and that's what I try to remember, that my mum would be saying to me. But yeah, maybe I've just self-diagnosed myself. So am I not depressed then? I'm not. I'm just love my mum and I'm just grieving now. Is that what it is?
That's it. Because I did, we've talked about this, about grief, and, grief is, the amount of grief is the love that you felt for the one that you've lost. I was listening to Dr. Wendy Suzuki. She's a brain neurologist, and that's what she said. With great pain comes great wisdom, which I thought was a great thing to say. And to turn around and say what she found the most was, she was doing a eulogy for a brother who had passed, and a father had passed not that long before that. The amount of love I had for those people. And that's what you've got for your mum, especially how close you were to your mum. And that's the biggest one of the biggest things in your life, I think that's ever been, was what's happened in the last 6 months. That's been the biggest thing, it really, really has for you. Getting married or having children is big, but it's joyful, it really is. But the joy of your mum's life, that's about the only thing you can take from it, really, isn't it? But it's not quite the same. That loss is just huge,
Oh, can you hear that thunder?
Oh, that's your mum.
Do you think we'll be able to? Yeah, it is.
There you go, you see.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love the signs that you get as well.
Yeah.
All the little things that tell you that they're still there, that they're still with you. And I've taken great comfort from that. I really have. I've really taken great comfort. And I take great comfort, and just that joy and that reassurance when we do this. And I've missed doing this.
I've missed doing this.
I've missed doing this so much.
This is like therapy sometimes to us.
It really is. It really is, Bri.
Yeah.
And I know that we talk every night at dinner.
I know,
and we're with each other 24 hours a day.
We were going to do a podcast just with us, with microphones at the dinner table.
We were, yeah.
Yeah.
That'd be a bit... We'd never be able to release that, though, because Sonny and Tessa hear everything that we're saying about them.
I know, yeah.
But no, it's just... And in answer to someone's question as well, because I know that someone commented on YouTube and they said, go for counselling, go and have counselling about this. And I just wanted to share this little story because I'm all for counselling. Yeah. I adore talking and talking things through. And with my mum's cancer came the very, very kind offer from hospice of 6 free counselling sessions for anyone in the family that's been affected.
Here comes the dog.
Oh, is she trying to barge through the door?
Your mum.
What? Oh, right, don't say that.
You don't open that door now, do you? Yeah. No, the thunders, the dogs got excited. I just saw the handle go like that on the door. I'm like, whoa.
Oh, right, can you imagine if that happened and we opened the door and my mum was stood there and it was just...
Oh, she comes.
Our dog is terrified of any loud noises, and we've closed her in the kitchen while we did the podcast, and she jumps up on her back legs and pulls the handle down of the door.
She smacks it with her nose and
barges through. So that's what that noise was. What was I just saying then? What was it? I can't remember.
I don't know. That was just my heart's going now.
Why did you think
No,
it was going to be my mum?
It's horrendous when you see a door going and you think there's no one in the house, but the dog is.
Oh,
that's funny.
Oh, do you know what? Yeah. Anyway, but yeah. So
you can hear that rain now.
So we got these free counselling sessions, and I thought, oh yes, please, yes. I want to go, because I was aware, and I am aware actually, that all I do is just open my heart to you constantly.
Yeah.
But what happened, Bri, is I went for these counselling sessions. I went for 3 of them, and they were fantastic. And I am so grateful to people who are counsellors and therapists and people who just listen and talk. But I went and I found myself interviewing him.
Yeah, but this is you though, all over, isn't it? Like, you tend to...
He was trying to get to the bottom of it. He was like, oh, tell me how you feel. And I was like, oh, how long have you been doing this job?
Just a quick interview. Do you mind if I put this on a podcast? Yeah.
And he was such a lovely, lovely, lovely man. He was really lovely. And I owe so much to him, because I mean, I'm joking, part of the time I just sat there and I just bawled to him, and he just sat there and listened. But the last time I went, when I knew that, I thought, actually, I'm not going to take up your space anymore, because there's someone who could get far more from you from these free counselling sessions than I'm taking up. Because the last time I went, I felt as if the roles were reversed, and I was telling him the story about what was going on with Mum's wake, because there was a bit of drama going on at the time with my mum's wake and about people coming and not coming and what people had said, and I was telling him everything. And he was leaning forward and he had his hands in his knees, and I could
body language.
Yeah, I could see him waiting for the next instalment. And he said to me, "Oh, you are going to come back next week, aren't you?"
Let me know what's going on. Yeah.
And but he also said to me in that very first session that I went for, he said, "Do you ever get the chance?" Because I really opened up, obviously. Yeah. He said, "Do you ever get the chance to talk like this with anyone else in your family?" And it made me realise how lucky I am that we get to do this.
Yeah.
That yes, actually, I get to sit and talk to you and just chat.
What I did enjoy, what you got out of it as well, was I remember you came home first or second session and said, this is what he said: "I've never lost anybody." This is the guy. "I've never lost a family member, but what I'm learning from you is going to help me get through my grief."
Yeah, he did say that.
So well done. That's good for
you. I know. Well, do you know what though, Bri? That's what this whole podcast is about.
Yes.
That's what, when we sat down before and I said to you, "Oh, Brian, is this just going to be too depressing for people? Is it good?" And you said to me, "What do you want out of it?" And I said, "I want to help someone. Yeah. I want to help someone who is in the same situation, because there must be someone
going through the same situation." Yeah.
And you're right. That's exactly what he said. He said, I have never lost either one of my parents, but watching you, how you're going through it, is preparing me. And I just thought that was absolutely lovely.
Do you know what? Since Maggie the dog has barged through, I can now smell lunch.
Yeah, I can smell my cottage pie cooking in the oven.
It's time.
Yeah, it's time to go.
Time to go, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Andy and Teddy are saying goodbye.
Who's Andy and Teddy? Who's
Andy
that?
Pandy.
Oh, right.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, look, I just want to say thank you so much for listening, for being there for us. And I really, really hope that just by listening to this conversation, because it's gone from here to there, hasn't it?
Yes.
In the face of 40 minutes, it's helped you in some way. But more importantly, I just want you to know that it's helped me.
Yeah,
and
I know I can see it's helped you.
It's lifted me, Brian.
Yes, it has. And
oh my! Get off my headphones.
It's your new lead. Yeah, don't bring a dog in when you're podcasting when you've got all these leads.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, it sort of ruined the moment there.
Didn't it?
Ruined my poignant goodbye. But no, I just want to say a huge thank you to you listening to this. I absolutely love you. Our hearts beat as one. They always will. And thank you so, so much for being there. Until next time, I'm going to say, stay safe, trust your gut, keep talking about it, and thank you for being you.
Yep. I second that 110%. But kia kaha, stay strong, and kia u, stay true. And we'll speak to you next time.
Okay. Speak to you soon. Bye.
See you now. Bye.
Okay.
Hello.
Didn't think. See, there was none of that then.
No.
You didn't think, oh, well, what about my rights? So I
Yeah.
just thought, I want the job. It was like really good
Because
money.
you had a long summer skirt on that day, didn't you?
Yeah, I said,
Yeah.
yeah, I'll wear a short skirt. I should, okay. And she said, and would you be willing, she said,
Yes.
would you be willing to lay a napkin in a man's lap?
Cocktails.
And
Cocktail waitress. There you go.